Don't talk bad about her now. So your stump guy showed up a day early, you said? That's fun.
Yep.
That's fun.
And I had working on my expo, but I didn't have, I got a spark plug I gotta put back in. I haven't had a good time to do it.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'll do it today. Well, the stump guy shows up, and then she tells me, wife tells me, that you're having this today. I said, well, it's Tuesday. So yeah, that got put off again. Then the stump guy wants to move my vehicle back.
Oh no. So you had a fun morning. It's all downhill from here.
Yeah.
Well, now we're doing the obligatory wait for some people to actually sign on. So, how's y'all's days been? How's your day been, Miss Judy?
My day's been good. I started out with a meeting with Dale, so
All right.
I
That's
spent
good.
my morning up here at First Baptist Church.
Oh, I know the feeling. Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you said it was good.
I
That's
don't
good.
get paid for it.
That's true. That's true. That's true. How about yours, Scott?
Didn't do it. Here comes my better half.
Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness. We had too many guys in this room.
Agree.
We can't see who all's online, so if you're online, make sure you let us know. Chris. Hey, Chris. Good afternoon. He was just about to tell us how good his day was with you, so.
Yeah, I was just fixing to say.
How's your day, Anita?
Great.
Good. Good. We've heard you've had some cockroach
Trauma,
experiences. Yes.
Trauma. My worst
You're
night.
still worried about that?
My worst nightmare come to life.
Last name?
At 4 o'clock in the morning, I was awakened by my dog, but it was a different movements, and I'm thinking, I hope she don't want to go out. I don't know what she's doing. Next thing I know, I feel something right here. And I'm just like, okay, it's a roach. A roach
One of those big fly
in my bed on me.
So now she's
So now I'm sleeping in the living room.
Scott's gotta get rid of that roach costume.
I haven't been back in there to sleep.
He's got to get rid of that
He's gotta
roach
what?
costume.
It was a big roach, but not that.
Be a literal nightmare.
So
All right.
security force is coming back out.
I hate them.
You live in southeast Texas, you're gonna have roaches.
It's accurate, yeah.
Not on me. Oh my God.
Not in your bed.
Oh my God.
That you know
I'm
about.
reliving it right now.
Right, you know about.
She's never going to come back. Oh, how about you, Joe? How's your day been?
Same as it was a few minutes ago.
Awesome.
Not much has changed.
Don't you know that the etiquette is to act like we just all met together at this moment and didn't start the live and have to fake a conversation?
So get with it.
We do a podcast with Allison Howell, and every time we get together and we'll talk for 20, 30 minutes, and then we'll start the podcast and act like, hey, you just walked in.
Hey.
Hey, Allison, how's your day going? Like I didn't just know.
That's that acting background.
Yeah,
That is
yeah. I don't do well. If you listen to the podcast, I'm like, I'm just pretending like I haven't been talking to you for 30 minutes.
It was tap dancing.
Tap dancing.
Tap dancing,
That
yes.
comes in handy,
Boy,
too.
this story just keeps evolving. Evolving. Toledo Bend. Wonderful. Well, it's been a couple weeks since we've done the live stream. Begrudgingly, I will admit, I'm doing it again only because when I don't do it, people complain to Scott, and then Scott complains to me. And so here we are doing the live stream. What this has been historically, if you're just tuning in for the first time, it's just we don't have anything. It sounds weird. We don't have anything planned. We just have a tendency to just be open to the conversations and the questions at hand. So if you're in the room or if you're online, please feel free. If there's questions that have just been burning in you at any point, nothing's really off the table. I may choose to say I have no idea or I don't feel comfortable enough to talk about certain elements, but usually it ends up being a fun time for me at least. So they can be about Genesis, they can be about anything. And so what kind of questions do you got? Let's just start there. What topics have been on your heart and mind recently with regards to the Bible or anything of that
Okay,
nature.
one of the things
Yes.
that,
I appreciate.
can
I will
always
say
count on
I am
God.
very appreciative of this because I get antsy when I'm like, I don't.
Silence.
okay, so one of the things we talked about is that there's a spiritual battle that's going on that not necessarily when you're reading it's talking about, okay, the creation or whatever, but there's this other thing, it's not really talked about much till Revelations, and it's talking about there's this battle going on, they're waging battle with Satan. So is there some of this in the Genesis story? There's probably more going on than what we've read into it.
So if I don't know if they can hear, please let us know if you can hear them speaking, Scott speaking. But his question is, there across Scripture we see random places where we're kind of a glimpse into this battle that seems to be happening in the background, as far as like what I would call like the cosmic battle that's happening between good and bad and those forces and whatnot. And we see that veil thinned when it gets to the time of like Revelations, towards the end of time, that veil thins, that battle kind of takes place within the presence of the created beings on earth. But he's asking whether or not if there's narratives that seem to push that exclusively or express that in Genesis. Am I correct in what you're saying? So yes, there are for sure moments where you'll see that in Genesis 1. We've kind of gone over a little part of that when it comes to in the days of creation. You get these pictures of how God creates both man and also creates the stars and these celestial beings that we would call like the sun and the moon. But then there also seems to be like a theme behind them, because he places them in the sky and he gives them ruling authority of those heavens. And then when he creates humanity, he does the same. He puts us on the earth or on the land and gives us ruling authority there. And then if you take that line of thought through the rest of Scripture, stars are almost always personified as celestial beings, not just burning balls of gas, which they are literally burning balls of gas up there. I'm not trying to make a statement that those things are angels or something, but they're a picture in the created world that we are able to see that will be used to show what those celestial beings are also doing in the heavenly realms. And so, yes, there are moments where you can easily see that. I am ever increasingly convinced that we are actually given more of a picture of that story, and you don't necessarily realize it until you begin to really study. But I will admit that I'm not comfortable enough to make some sort of a theological statement about any of that. It's more of a hunch, and the more I study, the more I feel that hunch is probably saying something, but it doesn't. You don't need to see that or hear that to get anything amazing out of the Bible, because I don't think we'll never have the true answer to that until we are with God and say, so like, what about this theory? What about this hunch? And so I wouldn't necessarily teach that that's what's happening. But
The only thing that you would teach probably is that there's way more that's out there than what we're seeing.
yeah, we have a tendency to simplify what the unknown, the unseen realm, to like angels and demons. And angels seem to be these things that are powerful and around God, and they get ascribed wings, but they're, maybe human-like. And demons are just the fallen ones of those. And the Bible is way more complex than that when it comes to those. There's many, many levels of these angelic beings, and seraphim, and are little fat babies that fly around shooting people with love arrows aren't a real thing. Like most of them are like a mix of human and animals, and some of them are man-like, and demons aren't even fallen angels. According to Second Temple literature, demons are actually the spirit beings of the Nephilim that's in Genesis chapter 6 that it talks about. But then Satan is clearly an angelic being that falls. But there's many layers and levels to that, and depending on how you read Genesis 6, honestly determines what you will see with regards to those layers. So if you read Genesis 6 with regards to the sons of God being a descendant of Seth, then angels become more of what has really been solidified in the mind of a Christian with regards to, there's archangels and seraphim and cherubim and demons are fallen angels. If you see Genesis 6 as actually a celestial rebellion, then there's more to all of that. And in like 5 years, when we finally get to Genesis 5 or 6, we could probably deal with that a little deeper. But I think that it's way more complex than maybe what we just simplified it down to.
So if you buy into the Seth theory, which I don't, but
You don't?
no.
You don't buy into the Sethite theory?
If you buy into that, so what's it saying is it Psalms 14?
82.
Huh?
Psalm 82.
Is that the one where they're talking about that
The judging
God
of the
is
sons of
on
God.
just a part of the other gods on a committee?
Council, yeah.
Council, yeah.
Yeah, Psalm 82 and 89. What are those? Well, people would Psalm 82. I'll just go there. Psalm 82. Psalm 82, everyone. If you've got your Bibles, we'll go to Psalm 82. Psalm 82, a psalm of Asaph. No idea who that is. All right. God has taken his place in the divine council. In the midst of in my translation say, gods, he holds judgment. What does y'all's translation say with regards to Psalm 82?
He renders judgment among the gods.
Among the gods? Little g gods?
Yes.
Okay. How long will you judge unjustly, show partiality to the wicked, give justice to the weak and the fatherless, maintain the right of the afflicted and the destitute, rescue the weak and the needy, deliver them from the hand of the wicked? They have neither knowledge nor understanding. They walk about in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are shaken. I'll stop right there for a moment. The Sethite view would read into this passage that the gods, little g gods, are human rulers, like basically rulers who have elevated themselves into a position of divine status on earth situation, which I can see. They're judges, human judges. They're not judging, appropriately and that kind of thing. And that's what they would say about that. The issue with that is verse 6 says, I said, you are gods, sons of the Most High, all of you, which again, we can still say, all right, well, maybe little g gods, judges, rulers. But then he says, like men you shall die and fall like any prince. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for you shall inherit the nations. Again, this could be the psalmist's way of reminding them that you're not gods. You're like a man. You're going to die regardless. If you take the Sethite view, if you take that Genesis 6 is talking about a celestial rebellion, and you read Deuteronomy chapter 18, and it talks about at the Tower of Babel, he divides up the nations according to the numbers of the B'nai Elohim, sons of God. Same wording as Genesis 6, same wording here as far as in the midst of the Elohim, the gods. It is literally the plural word for gods. If you look at it like that and you see that God placed what we would consider like a watcher in Daniel, in the book of Daniel, over each nation, these watchers would be the ones who would come in a divine council way, like give accusations to God about the wickedness that seems to be happening in the land where God's not chosen people live. But you see God saying, hey, how long are you going to let all this wickedness continue? You're letting all these really bad people win and get bigger, and you're supposed to be rescuing the weak and needy. And just like God would partner with humanity and earth to continue his creative ways, he would do the same in the heavens. So he would have people that he would a council that he would partner with, and so there's legitimacy behind if you take the Sethite view, which is the descendants of Seth, Adam's third child, are the ones who they would be called sons of God in Genesis chapter 6. You can still read this psalm like we're talking about worldly judges or kings. But if you take that there's a celestial rebellion, which I'm more inclined to take, but there's nothing wrong with you taking the other one, then this one, again, in this sense, makes more sense as far as a rebellion that would take place.
Well, I know we're not to Noah,
Yeah.
but so when God put the flood on the earth, so man was just bad, if you want to buy that, to set that view. If you buy the other view, he wanted to get rid of the Nephilim. The bloodlines were impure if you buy that. And that's why he had to end the earth.
That was a statement. That was a
If
question.
there
Yeah.
was a question in there, I don't know what.
Yes. We will get into that in a much greater detail. I think once we get there in the Genesis class, there's multitudes that you can go as far as that happens. So I'm inclined to believe that just like man, there's a celestial rebellion, which we all agree with. We all would ascribe to Satan himself, but when depending on how you see that very pivotal, that's why he gets stuck on Genesis 6 so much, is it is a pivotal passage that we skip over and don't ascribe enough meaning to. And when we ascribe the right meaning to it, then you get to understand some of the weirdness in Scripture, like in Job. You know, when you read in the book of Job chapter 1, you get another small the veil lifts just for a moment, and you get another small picture of this scene that we just read in Psalm 82. And when read out of context, it feels choppy and strange. And we all know the opening chapter of Job. God is speaking to his divine counsel, and Satan is there. And he asks him, from where have you gone? Well, okay, Job 1, we'll just go there. Job 1. Starting in verse 6. It says, "There was a day when the sons of God," same word, B'nai Elohim, "came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. The Lord said to Satan, 'From where have you come?' Satan answered the Lord, 'From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking up and down on it.' And the Lord said, 'Have you considered my servant Job? There's none like him on the earth.'" Do you get the sense like we're skipping some dialogue here that seems to really not make sense here? You have questions like, why is Satan here? What is he doing? We call him, we ascribe to him that he's the accuser, that kind of thing. But why did God suddenly just point out Job out of nowhere? And yes, it sets up the rest of the book. But if you look at verse 6 and you see Satan, does yours have a footnote that you can see or click on?
Or the adversary.
Yeah.
The
So
accuser or the adversary.
this is not a name. Ha-Satan is the Satan or the accuser. This is what will be for sure attributed to Lucifer, Satan, the devil, whomever you call him. But Ha-Satan here is a position within the divine council. So here, what we're seeing is we get to glimpse into a staff meeting that God is holding with his celestial partners, and he's going to his maintenance guy. And what did you do? And then I almost said he goes to Ha-Satan, but I should come down here. He goes to the accuser and says, so where have you come from? Your job is to go to and fro on the earth and bring accusations of wickedness. Read Psalm 82. Bring accusations. And he goes, I've just been wandering around the earth. And he goes, well, have you looked at Job? I bet you, as the accuser, can't find anything to accuse him of. He's righteous. There's none like him. and then the accuser, or Satan, or Ha-Satan. Now, whether this is Lucifer, the serpent, Satan, I don't know. I don't. It could be him. It may not be. It may just be a positional type thing. Either way, it doesn't matter, because what you're going to see is God will then point him towards a righteous and blameless one and saying, I bet you can't find any accusations on him because there's none like him, which sets up the whole book.
We've talked about this before too. On a timeline, where would this book, if this book happened, did this happen pre-creation? Couldn't be pre-creation because Job wouldn't be there, I guess. But had to be very early on.
Yeah, I don't know. Many much smarter people disagree, so I have no idea. They can't even agree on whether it's just allegorical in nature or whether it's a literal, study, or if it's a way. There's some lines of thought that believe that this could have even been written sometime during the time of Solomon and his wisdom, because it's considered wisdom literature, and the whole point of it is to kind of look at the ways of man, like philosophically, and how that works in a world where we believe there's a righteous God. And so, which is where we get there, because we often ascribe, like, why do bad things happen to good people? Like, that's kind of like the point here, but Job is not given an answer. So you're set up for this entire thing only for God to go, I'm God, you're not. And then for God to then bring his accusations towards the people who honestly brought up some pretty legitimate ways, like normal thought processes, as far as that goes. Like, you must have done something wrong. You probably deserve this. This is probably, for lack of better words, karma. And then God will come and basically blame them, like, for the wrong that they did. And not Job, who stood there and demanded that God give him an answer. And so there's a lot of really wise ways of thought as far as how do you deal with this? Like, what does this mean and what doesn't it mean? It's a cool book. Yeah, we should do a study in it sometime. It's really, really fascinating. But this is one of those random moments where, for some reason, the veil kind of gets lifted. You peer into what the workings behind the scene. And it doesn't give you anything more than that. You just kind of glimpse it, and then you move on, and you're like, wait, but what do you mean he's sitting in a council meeting with who? Anyways. So.
And then we're left with the question of, is God gonna let Satan ruin your life? I mean, he could not kill him was the only thing.
Yeah.
That he couldn't do.
Yeah, he couldn't harm. Yeah, he couldn't take his life. Yeah. Yeah.
He took his kids. He gave him a disease or something. If
Yeah.
I remember right.
Yep.
Did everything but kill him.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So now when you take that and you describe what Job was described as, a righteous and blameless one, which is only used a handful of times in all of Scripture, towards a human. Noah is another one of those. There's none righteous like him. He's blameless in all his ways.
Well, Enoch apparently was one of them.
Well, it doesn't describe them. He just says that he walked with God all the days of his life before God took him. But when you read Job and you see that, and you watch how he takes everything is removed from him. He remains righteous and blameless before God, but his life isn't taken, and his life is still kept, and everything else is restored, twofold for him. When you look at that through the eyes of, okay, well, the suffering servant of Isaiah is a picture of who Job is, except the problem is that now what's happened, instead of him losing everything, he loses himself. Like, he gives himself up so that everyone else can gain everything. So it's like an inversion picture of who Jesus is and what Jesus will do. And so Job's wisdom is to set you up towards why this world would say it is crazy for one individual to die for the many, but God's going to say, no, that's the only way. That's literally the only way that this can work, and it has to work through a righteous and blameless one who will then take the repercussions of sin, which is the death, upon himself. And when you play that with the people who are arguing with Job, going, you must have sinned. You must have sinned. This is a repercussion of the sin. This is why you lost everything. And then Jesus is going to come and not sin, but the repercussion of sin he'll take upon himself, and that will lead to the twofold restoration of life for all of mankind. And so it's a really interesting study on who Jesus is, and he's all in this book, and you don't even realize that you're reading it. That's not where we started, though, because we looked at Satan. Here.
So there's another place in the Bible where it's talking about.
If anybody else has questions, interject at any moment.
No, there's
Otherwise,
another place in the Bible where it's talking about some angel. He'd been in a battle. I'm sorry, I'm so
Daniel.
late, but I've been in a.
it's in Daniel 8 or 9, and he's talking about he would have come to speak with Daniel, to minister to Daniel when Daniel's having his dreams and visions towards in the middle of his exile. And Daniel, and he says that he couldn't have come any earlier because he was in battle with the prince of Persia, and it's the archangel Michael who's speaking, and it's just another weird picture. But it's not the first time in Daniel that you see that veil kind of open, because if you remember Nebuchadnezzar, when he has this dream, then he loses sleep about this giant tower that gets destroyed by an asteroid, and Daniel gets to give him the interpretation that it's these kingdoms, and these kingdoms will be torn up by an uncut rock, and it'll turn into a mountain. And Nebuchadnezzar's like, wow, you're amazing, and your God is amazing. And then cut to the next chapter, he builds a tower, and you're like, oh, you totally missed the whole point there. Anyways, he goes mad. Like, he's given a year to repent, Nebuchadnezzar is, and at the very end of the year, he stands up at the top of his palace and goes, look at all these things that I've built, and then immediately is struck with madness, and he goes down and he becomes a literal beast of the field. He's eating grass. He becomes the beast, representative of what happens when the beast is ruling this world. But it's handed down by the will or the action of what is called the Watchers. The Watchers are in place over Babylon here, and the Watchers have the authority of God to make a king mad and eat grass for a period of time until he humbles himself, and you get another veiled little bit of a glimpse. And then the archangel Michael stirs up a little bit later and says that he's been at battle with the prince of Persia. Otherwise he would have come earlier, and you're left with like so many questions. But that's all Old Testament stuff. In the New Testament, it continues that same thread. I think it's in Jude, maybe Peter, but it talks about, he makes this random statement about how, oh, you remember the time when the archangel Michael was fighting Satan for Moses' body. And then it just moves on.
Wow.
And you're like, what? What are you talking about? I need to know that story. And it doesn't tell you anything else. It just moves on, and there's I think that there's more to be found there, but it's just I don't think we'll ever know for sure what it is.
That's in Jude?
I think so. I was gonna look while somebody else talks.
Scott, you got anything?
So again, I just can't think to set that view is not just somebody's imagination. They're just making up something. I'm just not seeing it. It looks like there's way more supernatural stuff going on, and they're alluding to it in all of these chapters.
Jude, verse 9. But when the archangel Michael contended with the devil, was disputing about the body of Moses, he didn't presume to pronounce blasphemous judgment, but said, the Lord rebuke you. But these people blaspheme all the day, and they don't understand. They are destroyed by all the unreasoning animals, understanding instinctively. And he just moves right on, and you're like, I have more questions, but no idea. But it also, going down that same vein, Jude 6. If you just go up just a little bit before, we get and the angels or the messengers who did not stay within their own positions of authority, think Watchers, but left their proper dwelling, he kept in eternal change under gloomy darkness until the judgment of the great day. And then you read that with 2 Peter, and it talks about that uncomfortable passage that a lot of people like to avoid. These are the people, 2 Peter chapter 2, for God didn't spare the angels when they sinned, but cast them into Tartarus and committed them to chains of gloomy darkness and kept there until the judgment. And if he didn't spare the ancient world, but preserved Noah, a herald of righteousness, and 7 others when he brought the flood upon the world of the ungodly. So you read that and you see, okay, there's some celestial beings that seem to have not kept their abode. God has now punished them. And when did this happen? What just so happens the next verse starts talking about the flood and Noah and how he spared Noah's family. So up until, they can point all the way up until, I want to say it was one of the forefathers of our faith, Aquinas. I don't know. I don't want to misspeak, but he is the one who flipped the de-supernaturalized aspects of the Bible. He's a very smart person, very, very well, very smart. But anyways, he is the one who really pushed this idea that the sons of God were this line of Seth. He felt it was too kind of, for lack of better words, it just is icky. It was weird in this world where we don't deal with a lot of the supernatural in the material world. He really de-supernaturalized that view, and going forward, the church kind of took that in. Because, I mean, how many people want to stand up there and be like, yeah, angels had relations with humans and had kids and they were giants? I mean, that sounds like a fairy tale. That sounds weird. Sounds very strange. But it is important to look at the 2 possibilities, because Jesus himself says it's going to be like it was in the days of Noah. Well, there's only a couple possibilities there. Either people just keep having kids and are getting drunk all the time, or there's another something that takes place that is way bigger and corrupts literally all flesh on earth, to the point that God finds no other mercy than to take their life then, rather than allow it to all finish playing out.
So the watchers were marched into Hades or wherever they were shown. They were marched, and then they're going to be released, I guess, at the end times.
It says,
Didn't it say that?
It says in Revelation that there will be a moment when the beast who has the keys to the pit, which is the Tartarus that Peter and Jude is talking about, he will release these beings that are like scorpions, and they will be loosed on this earth, to kill and destroy. But those aren't the only ones. There's this idea that there either was a survival of the flood of these giant beings, or whatever you want to call them, or that there was a second incursion. Because if you read Genesis 6, it says that this occurs in the days when the sons of God had children with the daughters of man. They bore them Nephilim. They were there on the earth before and also after. And that's all it says about that necessarily. Now cut forward a couple 100 years or 1,000 years, and you see Joshua's having to go back into the promised land and destroy whole tribes of giants. All of these individuals that he's going and wiping out are all descendants of these Nephilim type beings, which makes sense because if you look at the ancient beliefs of the surrounding cultures, all of their kings all claimed, even up through Jesus' time, to be descendants of the gods. Caesar Augustus himself was called the Son of God, and his father was deified as a god upon his death. And so this whole idea of like bloodlines and bloodlines of the gods, that was a totally normal thing to talk about and to claim when you ran an empire. And God's coming on the scene and going, no, this is bad, because the seed of a woman will destroy the serpent. Now the serpent keeps trying to corrupt the seed of a woman. And when you look at it through that line, I mean, it gets, to me, it fills in a lot of blanks. I always had those questions like, what do we do with like mythologies and all these other religions, and why is there always like a lot of commonalities between them and not? But if you have fallen beings who are over separate nations, and God has chosen one nation for his own through whom he will do the work to save the rest of the nations, it would make sense that these nations would begin to worship these celestial beings in whatever way that may look. I don't know if they have abilities to give dreams and stuff. We see that they do that in Scripture, but we don't know what they did outside of the stories that we're given. So a lot of that is speculation, and we're reading their myths, but it just makes a lot more sense when it comes to that. Because if you look at things like Greek and Roman mythology as well, think about Hercules was one of the most popular ones. Hercules was half human, half divine. He was a demigod whose father was Zeus, and his mother was a human. And he was strong, and he was, force to be reckoned with, And there's those myths all across the world like that. And if we are to read Genesis 6 like it literally happened, then that fills in some blanks. If we read it like it's a literary piece to show how that actually leads to death, it still fills in a lot of blanks as far as those belief systems. So, y'all didn't know what you walked into today.
It's a lot to think about.
It is a lot to think about. But let me give you a real life scenario where maybe understanding this in that context could be important. If you desupernaturalize the Bible and think about a demon, its main goal is to possess, to take a physical body again, because it was created out of some two things that should not have been together. These Nephilim. If it wants to find a body, then that makes sense why it's here and wandering and trying to do that. If we desupernaturalize that and we believe that it was a line of Seth that led to the Genesis 6 thing, and God says, look, it's going to be like it was in the days of Noah, we would be very confused if, per se, as an example, suddenly an alien shows up in the worldview of people's minds. And if an alien showed up this year, whatever it may be, an alien race who claimed to be whatever, gods or however they want to see it, many in the church would have no idea what to do with aliens. Like, we don't talk about that. That's strange. And then if the alien race came and said we can cure diseases, and also we would like to move you into the next generation of evolution by implanting pregnancies and all this weird, stupid silliness, we'd be very confused as a church hearing that. But if you hear all the kooky people who've been abducted in the past 100 years, why is it that it's always somehow like poked and prodded like in sexual manners and reproductive manners? But if you're looking at an incursion that actually did take place, and what the world would call aliens, we would just call these celestial whatever beings, not extraterrestrial, but extra celestial beings, dimensional beings, who are trying to repeat the same scenario that took place as it was in the beginning in Genesis 6, which led to the corruption and the death of all of humankind. I'm not saying that angels, for lack of a better term, heavenly beings, had relationships with humans and had children, but I'm saying that if you're not at least open to the potential of that, a great deception, and even the holy ones could be deceived in a scenario where they've never heard of and read an alien in their Bible, and would be very confused as to what to do with this information. Which, hey, we may not have to ever deal with anything like that, because it's crazy to even think about. But it is becoming more and more and more accepted, the potential. I mean, UFOs and UAPs and all these kind of things. Suddenly governments are all like kind of on board with something, maybe potential. Anyways, we went down a really weird rabbit hole there.
Well, we're getting a great deception from everything the government's putting out. So I don't know how much you can put out. They could say we got aliens, coming in every day or something, and
Yeah.
it's probably just a crock.
Yeah. Oh, those are different aliens.
Oh, well, I'm not
Yeah,
talking
I wasn't talking
about
about different aliens. That's kind of funny. All right, I mushed everybody's brain now. Any other thoughts? They don't have to be about this strange conversation.
I actually like that stuff.
You do?
No way.
You do? I'm still back on Jude. I want to know what happened with this Archangel Michael and contending for Moses' body.
I do too. That's
Yeah.
intriguing, isn't it?
Yeah. And if you go back to Moses' account of death, it doesn't actually say anything about what happened to his body. It says that he was taken up to the place to be able to see the promised land, and he died there.
And no one knows where he's buried, supposedly.
Nope. It's strange that the two people that showed up on the Mount Transfiguration, where'd their body go? Where's Elijah? Oh, he got taken up in a chariot of fire. Sounds like a UFO, but whatever. We won't go down that road. No, I'm just kidding. Right? Yeah, I know, right? Then you read Ezekiel 1 and you're like, what is this world? What are these metal, light-filled things that came out of the clouds that are spinning that he sees with beings that look like men? You're like, what? Okay, sorry. That's weird. That's fun. People are like, that's in the Bible? I'm like, yeah, you guys don't read the Bible. You shouldn't read the Bible. It's weird. It is the weirdest, most amazing book ever.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Except for Genesis, and it's pretty amazing too, and then Exodus, that's pretty amazing too.
Yeah. Leviticus. Well, that one's amazing in its own way. That's a little tougher to describe how amazing it is, but
So it's Exodus that Moses is supposedly, they said Moses wrote all these, and yet he's dead at the end of
Deuteronomy. End of Deuteronomy, yeah. It says there's not been a prophet like Moses since.
So he couldn't have possibly written that hey, he's dead.
Yeah, right. Moses didn't write that.
But yet they're saying he wrote all those.
Yeah.
Unless he left a
Kind of
note.
like a narrator.
Authorship, yeah, is different than penmanship, maybe, but yeah. Yeah. So much crazy stuff just tucked away in here.
Well, just the crazy stuff is that was told that it was gonna happen, and everything's happening. Just like what's going on in Israel right now. They're
Yeah.
under attack and crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Wars
So,
everywhere, rumors of war everywhere.
meanwhile, our pastor's over there right now.
Well, we think.
We should be praying for that. Yeah.
You might have
Is
made
he
it.
over there?
He is. Yeah. He left yesterday, I think. He's with the Texas Baptist men out there in Israel they have a big, massive feeding element out there in Israel.
Did anyone else go that we know?
I don't think so. I think they were all
Just
nobody from our church as far as that goes. So.
So they're feeding Jason. That's the big massive.
They're feeding
At least he
Jason.
might get some decent food compared to the last trip he took.
Yeah, in Nepal, they said it wasn't too great. Monkeys in the street.
The,
Mm.
the one that,
Nepal and Bangladesh.
How long will he be gone this time?
I think it's like 9 days. I preach this Sunday. He'll preach the following Sunday, so he'll be back before that point. So, never fear. Jason will.
That was a commercial, by the way, Adam. Did
No,
preach?
I did not.
This
That is
Yeah.
not it.
I
No.
I
have to
been
hear Adam.
I love it.
And he's preaching in Genesis.
We Genesis 1. Thank you. No, not 6. No. I wouldn't touch that at all.
I'm not coming then if he's not preaching Genesis 6.
So last week Adam said that Israel was his favorite
It is.
place to go.
Yes.
And where was it? You said you would vacation every year.
Oh, the Sea of Galilee.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, it is. It's amazing. Have you been? Okay, yeah. Have you been once, twice?
Once.
Yeah.
I'd love to go again.
I think
But it's
everyone
such
needs
a-
to at least a couple times because it's impossible to take it
It's a
in.
hard trip
It is a
for
hard
an
trip.
older person.
It's a hard trip for a younger person. I can imagine for an
Yeah,
older
it's-
person.
It's a hard trip.
Yeah, that's what I told them. I'd love to go again and just go and just be there, not to have to feel like I need to go to all the sites, but just
Right, get up at 8 o'clock and get
Yeah.
on the bus. and
yeah.
go.
It's like you're there and you're standing on Mount Carmel and you're reading this story about Elijah. You're there for like 5 minutes and then you get on the bus and you leave. And you're like, I didn't take any of that in. Like, I can't
Exactly.
picture it. I can't see it. I can't, any of that. And it's overwhelming, but it's amazing.
Did you say get on a bus at 8 o'clock? That trip's not for
That's
me. then.
head.
Oh, you're not getting off that bus till 8 p.m. either. Like,
That's
I'm
right.
okay with it,
Yeah.
not getting off till 8.
Yeah.
But we don't need to get started about 10 o'clock.
no, don't go with Terry. Terry, I hope you're listening. Don't ever take Scott.
But grateful that I got to go, that I
Yeah.
had the opportunity to go, that,
Yeah.
that Terry put a trip together.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would have never done that.
Done it on
Yeah.
your
You
own.
know,
Yep,
so I'm so grateful that in my lifetime, I
Yep.
got to experience it.
yep.
How long ago was that you went?
Oh, gosh, let's see. It must have been 2011, 2010.
Okay. I'm just curious, I mean, now, thinking about going right now.
Yeah, it's-
Well, I really, I wouldn't be afraid to go.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I
With what's
really-
going on over there?
Yeah, even with what's going on, I wouldn't be
Well,
afraid
Tel
to
Aviv
go.
would not be the place you'd want to go.
Well, I thought that as well, honestly. But when I was over there, like, I never once felt in
No.
danger.
Mm-mm.
And I mean, they had a terrorist attack when we were there on the Mount Temple Mount, where they killed some people came in and killed a police officer, and we went the next day, and our tour guide was like, "This is probably the safest it'll ever be because everything's so heightened at this moment." And it was crazy because we were the only ones on top of the Temple Mount. There was nobody else there.
Oh, that must have been
He was like,
wonderful.
"This is like going to Disney World and having the whole park to yourself. It is
Wow.
insane." So we got to walk around a completely empty Temple Mount, just the 11 of us. It was crazy, so crazy. But I never felt in danger. But to convince a bunch of people to go,
Oh.
I'd struggle a little more with trying to do that.
You wouldn't want to be the one that convinced them to go, and there
Yeah.
wasn't something.
Yeah,
So Temple Mount being the mountain that the temple is located on?
correct. Yes.
I mean, so there's one wall left of that's the
Yeah.
Wailing Wall, I guess?
Well, in a way, yes. But that was all destroyed too. There's just the nearest point to where the temple used to stand is why that western wall is so popular and whatnot. So it's not the same as when Jesus was there, because all that got toppled over in 80, 70 or whatever. But it is. There's portions of it that are all still whatever there.
And they're gonna rebuild according to Revelation. all that's
Depends
gonna
on
be
your view.
rebuilt, And sacrifices will resume.
Depends on your view. The view,
So,
yeah.
what is your view on that?
Oh no. I will say that there's a third temple to be built. I'll go with that. I'll go with that. There's a third temple to be built, and that's third temple to be built. They're ready. There's a whole. It's all there. You can go see.
Got
Yeah.
all the stuff
It's all
for it
there.
and everything.
They could technically resume animal sacrifice now if they wanted to. They don't have to have a temple to begin that. So
The bull, what is it?
the red heifers,
Angus or whatever.
the red heifers, the spotted sheep are back now. Joseph's spotted sheep from Canada. They found those, whatever that is, and moved those back over there a couple years ago now, and it's all ready. There's just another mosque up there they got to get rid of. Two of them.
So if you're Jewish today, and I think I'm going to heaven, you get there by good deeds? I mean, they think it's works? I mean, they can't sacrifice.
Yes. It's more complicated than that, but yes. They want to live by the law. They want to, and there's different. Of course, there's different. It's like saying First Baptist and Independent Baptist and stuff like that too. There's Orthodox Jews, and there's a lot of different kind of Jews. But there's Messianic Jews. But remaining faithful to the Talmud, to the teachings, to the Torah, those kind of things. Keeping the Sabbath, keeping the feasts, like that kind of thing until the animal sacrifice returns. they would have accredited righteousness in a certain way, and because of the chosen race sort of
It totally
situation.
works, pretty much.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
They believe in the Old Testament all the way,
yeah,
Because even the
but they
sacrifice
believe
is just
Jesus
just a work.
existed, they just don't believe Jesus was the Messiah. They're still waiting on the Messiah.
He was a
So-
teacher.
Huh?
yeah.
They believe he was like a teacher or.
Well, they know he was a good man, I've heard some Jews say that.
I mean, the
They just
Mormons
don't-
believe that too.
Well,
They don't
yeah.
think he was,
Well, so do the Muslims. They believe he was a prophet. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna end the live stream. Thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it. Maybe see you next week. I don't know. We'll see.